What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel, and it is finally time, the final NCAA bracketology of the 2022-2023 season for me. Man, we have made it we're less than 24 hours from the selection show. My, oh my, we have made it, guys. I'm so excited to fill out my bracket. But let's fill out our NCAA bracket. As of right now, it is 12:14 a.m. my time, so we just finished with all the games. So I'm just going to make a list down of all the automatic qualifiers from today, as we haven't had one in a couple days because I guess all the finals were on Saturday. But anyway, so the first one of today was Vermont out of the American East Conference. Then we had Howard just barely surviving. Who was it against? A Norfolk State, a really good Norfolk State program over the years. Then we had Texas Southern somehow winning here. This team was like 12 and something. I think they've only won like 12 games this year, so that is insane that Texas Southern pulled that off over Grambling State today. They were 14 and 20 on the year, so crazy for Texas Southern. That team's been a very good team over the years to make the tournament. And then we had Texas, obviously, out of the Big 12, just dominating Kansas. I've been picking Kansas to be my champion over the past few bracketologies. They've been my favorite. As of the tournament right now, I was like, okay, Kansas is my team. But honestly, right now, guys, I don't even know. We're going to have to get to see in my bracket. I mean, I'm serious. Like, usually I have a team that I'm rolling with. Like, last year was Arizona. A few years ago was Illinois. Obviously, those didn't pan out. But, yeah, I'm not sure this year. There's a lot of teams that I think could win it, and Kansas is still a part of that, but it's gotten me hesitant a bit after that loss. All right, but anyway, we had San Diego State beating Utah State for the Mountain West tournament champion. Then we had Marquette just dominating Xavier Day for the Big East. Florida Atlantic for the Conference USA just dominating UAB, so they're not going to be sweating on Selection Sunday. They know that they're in. I think that they deserve to be in either way. Conference USA is a good conference anyway. And then we had Iona. Rick Pitino obviously leading his team to the tournament like year in and year out. Just really good program there. And then we had Duke beating Virginia today. Huge win. Duke is heating up at the right moment right now. Kind of like they did last year, I believe. And then we had UC Santa Barbara punch their ticket. Another good program right there. Arizona beating UCLA just barely. What a heck of a game that was if you were able to stay up and watch that, because that was a great matchup between two really good teams. Then we had Grand Canyon beating Southern Utah. I'm from Utah, so it looks like we're only going to get Utah State in the tournament from Utah this year. I think Utah State deserves to make it in at this point. All right, so that is the automatic qualifiers. Let's just look at this bracket here for just a little bit. Kansas here, top overall seed, still after losing to Texas, according to Joe Lundardi. It's really either between Alabama and Houston at this point. And then, Houston plays tomorrow. And I forgot to mention, we have just a few more games tomorrow for the Ivy League conference tournament. We have the SEC between Alabama and Texas A&M. I guess this is still today, but anyway, Dayton against VCU. By today, I mean since it's like midnight, it would be today. But anyway, Dayton versus VCU for the Atlantic 10, and then we have Memphis versus Houston, really good matchup for the American Athletic, the AAC, and then the Big Ten is the final one before we get into the selection selection show. All right, but anyway, moving on. First team out, we had Oklahoma State. Very close to make the field. Honestly, I think that they're a better team than Arizona State right there. I think they deserve to be in. But Arizona State is the last team in at this point. Then we look at the last four byes. We have Boise State, Providence, Utah State, as I mentioned, losing to San Diego State earlier. And then we had Rutgers just barely missing the last four in, where we have Mississippi State, Pittsburgh, NC State, and Arizona State. Not a lot of these teams play today, so I'm not going to be re-saying things that have already happened here. But first for out, we have Oklahoma State, Clemson, Nevada, and then here's a team that played today. Vanderbilt just lost to Texas A&M. If they won that game, I think they would have deserved to be in the field, but I don't think that they're going to make it because they lost. Their net isn't that high. But a good season for Vanderbilt regardless, and just hasn't been a good program over the years, to be honest. But anyway, next Friday we have Wisconsin, North Carolina, Oregon, and Michigan. All those teams just probably not going to make it at this point. All right, but let's look at the movement here. Texas Southern, as I mentioned, new to the field at a 16 seed. We have Indiana losing to Penn State today. They're going to be dropping down to a 5 seed. Still very much believe in that program. And then we have Maryland dropping down to a 9 seed. Didn't play, just some seeding changes, I guess, there. And then Penn State jumping up to a 10 seed. I think that Florida Atlantic's jumping up here, but I'm not sure. As I mentioned, Penn State beating Indiana. Penn State is heating up at the right time right now. And then in the West region, literally no movement to speak of besides Houston as the number 1 seed. In the East region, Purdue. I mean, UCLA, now that they lost, I think if Purdue just beats Penn State tomorrow, they should be locked up, I think, for the 1 seed. At this point, I think that's fair to say. But then we have Memphis jumping up to the 8 seed. Iowa State going to be dropping down to a 5 seed there just because of changes, I think, because of I'm not sure why they're dropping down. I don't even know. Kent State, though, new to the field at a 13 seed. They got the big win. Did I mention Kent State? I don't know if I did, actually. I think I actually might have not mentioned Kent State, but they won in their conference tournament in the MAC. That's a huge win for Kent State. I mean, this is a good program, too. Forgot to mention them. But then we have Baylor dropping down to a 3 seed. Auburn going to be dropping down to a 10 seed. And then we have Marquette jumping it to the 2 seed. All right, so let's get into the predictions here. So starting out with the first 4, NC State versus Arizona State. I'm going to go with NC State, though, in that game. I could see that one going either way. Not the biggest fan of either of those teams, but I think that NC State's the better team. And then Howard versus Southeast Missouri State. I'm going to go with Howard. Howard impressed me today. I think that they can get the win. Mississippi State against Pittsburgh. I'm going to go with Mississippi State in that one, as well as Fairleigh Dickinson beating Texas Southern. All right, so let's go to the round of 64 here. Kansas versus Northern Kentucky. I'm going to go with Kansas. Arkansas against Illinois, an 8 versus a 9 seed. Good matchup, but I'm going to go with Illinois in that matchup. And then probably would be a popular upset pick here for a lot of people with Oral Roberts against Indiana. I'm a huge supporter in Indiana, though. I'm not turning my back on them. They almost beat Penn State, came back on that one. They have a lot of heart. I think that I still believe in this program. I think that they could beat Oral Roberts, but no discredit to Oral Roberts. These 5 seeds this year, so I think are better than most, and the 12 seeds this year I think are better than most 12 seeds as well. I mean, it's just been one of those years. And then Xavier versus Iona. I'm going to go with the 13 seed upset pick here. I'm going to go with Iona to pull off the win. Let's do it. Xavier I'm just not a fan of them. I'm going to be honest. They're inconsistent this season. I think that they can get upset in the first round. And Iona is a very good team this season. And a very well-coached team, as we all know. And then San Diego State versus Rutgers. I am going to go with the 6-seeded San Diego State in that game. Gonzaga, I do think it beat Grand Canyon. Michigan State against Providence. Not the biggest fan of either of those teams, but I'm going to go with the 10-seed upset. Let's do it. Providence is a good team. I want to go with them to pull off the win. And then Arizona, I do think it beat UC Santa Barbara. Probably a little bit reseeded. I mean, low seed for UC Santa Barbara there, but it is what it is. Purdue versus Howard, I'm going to go with Purdue. Memphis, I think, could beat West Virginia. And then I'm going to go with the 12-seed upset pick here. I'm going to go with Charleston to pull off the win over Iowa State. I'm just a big believer in Charleston this year. They're a good school. And Iowa State, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, Iowa State's just they're just a weird team in my eyes. They're an inconsistent team that I think that they could beat anybody but can lose to anybody. But I think that Charleston's going to be good enough to pull off the upset. And I'm going to go with Tennessee to fall to Kent State in the MAC, pulling off the upset picker. My second 13 seed pulling off the win. I don't know, man. The 4 seeds this year I don't know. They're a little bit sus in my eyes. Tennessee, just not a big believer in that program. I mean, they've been losing some games lately. And why not pull the string on 2 13 seeds pulling off the upset? 13 seeds have had recent success in the NCAA tournament, by the way. St. Mary's versus NC State. I'm going to have to go St. Mary's in this one if I'm going to be honest with you guys. Or, man. No, never mind. I'm going to flip it back. Yeah, I'm going to go St. Mary's. Okay, so here's my reasoning for St. Mary's. I know they just got crushed in the by Gonzaga, but I'm not a big supporter in NC State. I know they're coming off the first 4 game. Okay, I don't know. I have a feeling that St. Mary's, they're a veteran team. They're going to bounce back from a tough loss like that. Maybe that'll be a wake-up call for them. Okay, that's my reasoning. I'm going to go St. Mary's. I'm trusting my gut on that one, even though they didn't play well. But then Baylor, I do think it beat Kennesaw State. Northwestern against Auburn, I'm going to go with Northwestern in that matchup. And then Marquette, I think it beat Colgate. All right, and then over here, Alabama, I do think it pulled off Fairleigh Dickinson. As much as I like, these two teams are both really good in my eyes. But I'm a Maryland standby. I'm going to go with them to pull off the win. TCU, I do think it beat VCU. And then Virginia, I think it beat Yale. Utah State, I think, pulls off the 11-6 upset pick here. I'm a big believer in Utah State. Miami's getting banged up in this tournament. Banged up against Duke last game, so that could be problematic, and I think that Utah State can take advantage. They're a really good team out of the Mountain West. UConn, I do think it beat Vermont. Missouri against Penn State, one of the hottest teams in the country right now in Penn State, just beating Indiana. But I am going to go with Missouri. I'm just a bigger believer in that program. I'm going to go with them to win. And then Texas, I think it beat UNC Asheville. And then down in the final region here, Houston against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. I'm going to go with Houston. Iowa gets USC. I'm going to go with Iowa. Texas A&M, I do think it beat Drake, although Drake is a really good team. And then Duke, I think it beat Louisiana. Creighton versus Mississippi State. I'm going to go with Creighton in that matchup. And then Kansas State, I do think it beat Furman. Kentucky versus Boise State. I'm going to go with the Wildcats, as well as UCLA beating Montana State. So after all the chaos that we endured in the other region, we're going to go a full chalk region here. Just don't like the upset candidates there. Probably will not happen in the real NCAA tournament. All right, but before we spot in the Sweet 16, Kansas versus Illinois, I'm going to go with the Jayhawks. Indiana, I do think it hold off Iona. Gonzaga versus San Diego State. I'm going to go with the Zags in that one. And then Arizona versus Providence. I'm going to go with Arizona. Down here, Purdue versus Memphis. Memphis could pull off an upset over Purdue. You know what? Let's do it. I'm going to go with Memphis. The Tigers pulling off the win. They were really impressive against Tulane. Just dominated Purdue. I think there's usually a 1 seed that goes down in the second round of a tournament. I think that this could be Purdue this year. I think that Memphis could handle their business and pull off a win. Charleston versus Kent State, a 12 versus a 13 seed. I'm going to go with Charleston. Baylor against St. Mary's. I'm going to go with Baylor. Baylor got an easy first 2 matchups that I'm not a believer in. St. Mary's to pull off that win, and I do think Baylor could get upset, though, in the second round. Maybe even the first round. But then Marquette, I do think, will be able to handle that business against Northwestern. All right, over here, Alabama versus Maryland. A 1C versus an 8C. Last time I did the upset with Maryland, but Alabama's looking good in this SEC tournament. I'm going to go with them. TCU, I do think it beat Virginia. UConn, I think, can beat Utah State. And then Texas, I think it beat Missouri, as much as I like Missouri in that matchup. All right, Houston versus Iowa. I am going to go with the Cougars of Houston to win that one. And then Duke and Texas A&M. Man, this is a good matchup. I'm going to go with the Blue Devils, though. I just think that they're slightly the better team. Kansas State versus Creighton. I'm going to go with the Wildcats, as well as UCLA versus Kentucky. I'm going to go with UCLA. So, all right, over here, before I spot in the Elite Eight, Kansas versus Indiana. I'm going to, man. Kansas is a smaller team that could help Kansas against the Trace Jackson Davis, but also Indiana can get in that paint because Kansas does not have that big man. Oh, man, this is a tough one. I literally had this one in the championship game this morning, but both these teams lost today. You know what? I'm going to go with Indiana. I'm going to do it. I don't know if I'm going to do this in the real NCAA tournament, but I'm going to go with Indiana in this matchup. Indiana, I know they lost pretty bad against I can't think, Penn State. But Kansas they got blown out by Texas. Man, I'm rethinking here. Yeah, let's just keep Indiana. In the NCAA tournament, if this matchup comes up, man, guys, I might be sitting there for like 3 minutes, but I'm just going to stick with Indiana right now. I think that they can get the best of Kansas, but that one, man, that's a tough one to predict. All right, but then Gonzaga against Arizona, I'll go with Arizona. Down here, Memphis versus Charleston. I'm going to end Charleston's run there. We're going to go with the Tigers of Memphis to make a crazy run to the Elite Eight. And then Marquette versus Baylor. I'm going to go with the Golden Eagles of Marquette. Over here, Alabama versus TCU. Let's go with the Horned Frogs. I'm going to go with the TCU Horned Frogs to pull off the win over Alabama. That means that there's only one number 1 seed remaining in the Houston Cougars. I think that TCU can get the job done and beat Alabama in that one, although that is a very good matchup. UConn versus Texas. A 3 seed versus a 2 seed. Texas just looks so good in their last matchup. I'm going to have to go with Texas. All right, Houston versus Duke. The Cougars are the final number 1 seed, and I'm going to have them fall to the Blue Devils. So we're going to have, let alone no 1 seeds in the Final Four, but no 1 seeds in the Elite 8. That is unheard of, guys. I mean, it's a crazy stat, but I think that I don't even know when the last time a 1 seed didn't even make the Final Four here. It's just very unheard of for that to happen. But it's the final NCAA bracketology. Let's have some fun with it. I'm going to go with Duke to win that one and go to the Elite Eight, where they will face Kansas State, the Wildcats, beating UCLA. So a wild bracketology here. But for a spot in the Final Four, Arizona, the Wildcats, I do think will be able to end Indiana's run and advance to the Final Four. And then Marquette versus Memphis. As much as I'd like to see Memphis in the Final Four, I'm going to go with Marquette, the 2 seed. TCU versus, that's crazy. Memphis makes it farther than their Houston Cougars, man. It's just all about matchups in the NCAA tournament. But TCU versus Texas, a 2 seed versus a 5 seed. I'm gonna go with the Horned Frogs. I know these two just played and Texas won. I think that TCU could get the revenge. Now, I did say that about Kansas. I would have said that earlier today about Kansas against Texas, that Kansas would be able to get the revenge because they just lost. But I think that TCU, man, really good team here, underrated team, and you got to have a 5 seed here. Let's go with the crazy 5 seed to advance on to the champion, the Final Four, and then Duke versus Kansas State. I'm going to go with the Blue Devils. They've earned my respect. They're playing so good right now. The Wildcats, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge believer in that team, but against Duke, I am going to have to go with Duke. So the Final Four, wild bracketology here, but we're finally to the Final Four. We got a 2 seed in Arizona, a 2 seed in Marquette, a 4 seed in Duke, and then a 5 seed in TCU. No 1 seed, as I mentioned. Not even a single 1 seed in the Final Four. That would literally cap off one of the craziest college basketball seasons I've witnessed in the regular season. But anyway, Arizona versus Marquette. I'm going to go with Arizona. Marquette's a really good team, but Arizona, man, I'm a huge believer in this program. And then Duke versus TCU, a 5 versus a 4 seed. Man, really good matchup. But I'm going to go with Duke. Let's go with the Blue Devils out of the ACC to advance to the championship game, where we will have Arizona and Duke, national championship on the line, and I'm going with the Wildcats winning the Pac-12 and with Kansas losing the Final Four, right now, honestly, the Arizona Wildcats are my team. Could it change by my bracket? We will see. Back-to-back years where I picked Arizona if that happens, but I'm picking the Wildcats. This has been a long video, guys, today, but hope you all enjoyed the chaos of this bracketology here. Comment down below your predictions, and anyway, peace out.